On Saturday night, I headed to a pub located in the basement of a mixed-use building near the train station. The function room in the back of the pub was reserved for a gathering of familiar faces, dozens of whom had assembled. "Hey, Max, long time no see." My childhood friend, Bob, noticed me and called out. "Hey, Bob, it's been a while," I replied and took a seat next to Bob. Today was our middle school reunion. This was the first reunion for our class. We were all 23 years old. Those who went to college would be in their first year of work. But I had fallen ill right after starting high school and had to repeatedly go in and out of the hospital, forcing me to take a leave of absence. Eventually, I recovered from my illness but chose not to return to high school and instead started working part-time. This was because my father's business had accumulated a lot of debt and went bankrupt, so I decided to work to help out with the family finances. It was just my father and me. My mother wasn't around. My father worked hard, managing both the household and his job, and always supported me during my illness. He must have been very busy at his new job, working to pay off debts. I could tell how busy he was every time his constantly ringing cell phone went unanswered. Yet, he visited me in the hospital every day during my hospitalization. It must have been tough for him to make it to the hospital by 7 p.m. when visiting hours ended, especially since it took an hour by train from his new workplace. He always said, "I want to see your face at least once a day," and would show up in my hospital room. When I was discharged from the hospital and returned home, the house was always in disarray. Unfolded laundry piled up, dishes and cups accumulated and washed in the kitchen sink. And sometimes there were several unthrown garbage bags on the balcony. He must have been too busy to do the household chores, as he was working hard. In the midst of repaying debts, he also had to care for me in the house. I realized how hard it had been for him at that time. I wanted to be the one to support him. So once I recovered from my illness, I started working part-time at a bookstore. I worked diligently every day, never late or absent. And my efforts paid off. This year, I was promoted to a full-time employee. I shared this news with Bob, whom I met again after a long time. That must have been tough, missing a lot of school due to illness. Bob sympathized. Just then, a familiar woman approached us. "Max, I heard you didn't even finish high school. You're just a middle school graduate, aren't you?" It was Emma, who used to bully me in middle school. She was the last person I wanted to see again. "It must be really tough for you if you don't have a high school degree. These days, you can't even get a decent job, can you?" Emma said, looking down on me with disdain. I stayed silent and looked down, knowing it was pointless to argue with her. Middle school graduates don't earn much, do they? Come to think of it, you were poor even when you were in middle school, and you're still poor as an adult. I'm actually surprised to see you at this reunion. Can you even afford the fee? Emma said loudly, drawing the attention of everyone around us. "Hey, Emma, that's enough," Bob interjected, but Emma glared at him and snapped. "How dare you speak to me like that? Do you know who I am?" Emma was the daughter of a local construction company owner. Her parents were influential in the community, with her father serving as the head of the neighborhood association, and she was notoriously arrogant in the local shopping district. Bob runs a coffee shop with his family in that local shopping district. It wouldn't be good for his family business if Emma started harassing him. I hurriedly stepped between the two of them. "Bob, don't worry about me," I said. Bob fell silent, looking frustrated. Emma smirked and walked away. The reunion, which should have been fun, turned sour because of Emma. Bob consoled me, saying, "Don't worry about what she said. There was a time in middle school when I got the highest score in a Spanish test, and it seemed she couldn't stand it, being good at Spanish herself. I even have a Spanish tutor," she said, crying in frustration, a scene Bob had accidentally witnessed and recounted to me. That was when she started harassing me, but I never paid attention to it, thinking that karma would get her for such petty behavior. See you, Max. Keep it up. Take care, Bob. A few days later, I received my first paycheck as a full-time employee. I decided to repay my father for everything he'd done for me and took him to a famous and expensive French restaurant. It was a well-regarded place and had been featured prominently in the local paper when it opened. When my father saw the paper, he murmured, "That's a nice restaurant. I'd like to go there someday." Since I started working, he prepared lunch for me every morning, even though he himself had to get up early for work. My father, a man of few words and quite stubborn, was someone I deeply appreciated. Dining at such a high-end restaurant was the first time for both of us. My salary wasn't very high. Even though I lived at home, I had to split the monthly rent and living expenses with my father, so I didn't have much leeway financially. But living frugally every day, I thought it would be nice to splurge just once in a lifetime. So, I made a reservation at the restaurant. My father said, "It's a waste of money, no need for such things." But I want to enjoy some good food for a change. I insisted on us going there. On the day, both of us dressed up in suits and went out. The restaurant, with its luxurious exterior and interior, resembled an European castle, and we were both amazed. Of course, the food was delicious too. From the appetizers to the main courses, the dishes served had the flavors we had never tasted before. My usually quiet father, perhaps a bit tipsy from the wine, kept saying, "This is delicious," with a truly happy expression on his face. "I'm really happy that you've become a full-time employee and that you recovered completely from your illness," he said. His eyes began to shimmer with tears as he spoke. "I really regret not being able to send you to high school. I'm sorry for the hardships you had to face because of me," he said, looking straight into my eyes. It was the first time I heard such words from my father. I never knew he felt that way. "Dad, I never thought it was your fault. Besides, even though I didn't get to go to high school, I think it was a good thing that I started working at an early age and gained various experiences. And Dad, I'm grateful to you. It must have been hard to take care of me when I was sick, but thank you for raising me on your own." My father looked up when I said that. "Max, you've really grown up to be a fine young person," he said, with tears in his eyes. It was the first time I had ever seen my father cry. "Dad, don't cry. Come on, let's eat." We resumed our meal. My father, who normally didn't say much, was quite talkative that day. We shared nostalgic stories from my childhood and finished our meal in high spirits. Just as we were about to leave the restaurant, I heard a familiar voice. "Max, is that you, Max?" Hearing the voice, I had a bad feeling. It was Emma, who stood up from a nearby table and was approaching us. "I'm surprised to see a poor person like you with only a middle school education in such an expensive restaurant," Emma said, smirking at me. That bad premonition came true. I didn't care what she said to me, but I didn't want her to belittle me for only finishing a middle school in front of my father. I was worried he might blame himself again. Emma glanced at my suit and said, "What's with that cheap, tacky suit? Even if you dress formally, you still can hide your poverty. People like you don't belong in this kind of place." She was unusually critical and loud, perhaps in a bad mood. Worried, I looked at my father. That's when he stepped forward from behind me. "Emma, long time no see," he said. "What? Oh, you're Tom." Emma's eyes widened in surprise and she froze, mouth agape. "What, Dad, you know Emma?" "Yes, she's a sales representative for one of our company's suppliers," my father explained. I couldn't believe it. My father and Emma knew each other. Emma didn't even see who I was with as she was too busy confronting me. After his company went bankrupt, my father was fortunately offered a position at a friend's company and became the head of the purchasing department. To Emma, my father was an important client. Tom, why are you here? Well, it's simple, this is my son. We came here for a father-son dinner. He treated me with his first paycheck, my father explained. Wait, Abbott, you are father and son. Emma was shocked. I apologize for my rude behavior. I didn't know Max was your son, Emma said hastily. My father had a stern look on his face. Emma, it seems you have quite a prejudice against academic backgrounds, he said. No, that's not what I meant. Emma tried to make excuses, but my father interrupted. I've known James, the sales manager of your department, for a long time. He never discriminated against you for being a high school graduate, and always treated you the same as other new employees who graduated from college, he continued. Hearing this, Emma's face twisted in frustration. Yes, James did look after me, but the other college graduates and seniors looked down on me, she admitted. Just because you were treated that way doesn't mean you should do the same to others. Such behavior is meaningless, my father responded. He spoke in a firm tone. I'm sorry. Don't apologize to me, apologize to my son, he said. Then, Emma turned to me and looked straight into my eyes. Max, I'm so sorry. She blushed as she apologized repeatedly. Seeing this, I felt a sense of relief. Emma, the reason Max couldn't go to high school was that my business went bust at that time. He gave up further education so he could work and financially help me. He is such a considerate son, so please don't mock him ever again. And not just Max. It's wrong to mock anyone based on what's on the surface. Such behavior lowers your own dignity as well, my father said, placing his hand on Emma's shoulder. Tom, I understand. I am truly sorry, Emma responded. Dad, I was moved by my father's resolute demeanor. I'll have a word with James about this, he added. What? No, please, that would be embarrassing, Emma protested. Or should I reconsider our business dealings with your company? No, please don't do that. Then I'll just have a quick chat with James. Oh, no, Emma's shoulders slumped in defeat. By the way, Emma, isn't your friend waiting for you to come back to the table? Emma looked up as my father gently spoke to her. At her table sat a young man, looking our way with concern. Perhaps he was Emma's boyfriend. You should go back to him, my father suggested. Yes, I will. Again, I'm really sorry about my behavior. Emma hurried back to her table. I thought to myself, the other day at the reunion and now at the restaurant, it was odd timing to encounter her. As we walked to the station, I said to my father, Thanks, Dad. For what? For standing up to Emma. It felt good. I only did what was right. She's an adult. She can't go on like that, and I can't just stand by when my beloved son is spoken to in such a manner, he said with a gentle smile. Hearing him call me his beloved son warmed my heart. A few days later, my father took me to a department store and ordered a tailor-made suit for me. Despite his own financial struggles from repaying debts due to his business failure. This is your present for becoming a full-time employee, and I just wanted to thank you for buying me a fancy meal the other day, he said, and paid for the suit. After all, he spent a lot more money than I did on the meal. I hope to repay him for the suit someday. And I intend to cherish our father-son bond and continue living harmoniously together,